Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Here from Group 1, we want to presentation our material for the first time entitled The Art of Jazz. The way you are song the improv student listening skill at the 8th grade of Junior High School to Kota Gajah. I want to introduce my member. I, Ananda Femiliana, and there are Vika Damayanti, Sinta Putri Mulyati, Aurel Cindra Putri, Wulan Sari, Mutliah, Kinta Natasha, and Delas Linda. Okay, here my first present will explain about background of study and identification of the problem. Background of study. Indonesians government realized their responsibility on their citizens' ability to speak foreign language. They prepare children that will lead this country in the future by making suitable regulation related to education system. Listening is one of the most important skill to master. Listening is not only just hearing, but also understanding. The success of speaking is measured in terms of the ability to understand the words what is the speaker saying. As the main tool communication, listening becomes one of the skills to be mastered by senior high school students. Teaching listening for foreign learning. Learning that comes from non-English country as the first or second language. Popular song is one of the genres that are used to listen by learn. They could find the song wherever there are such on the shopping center, on the public transportation, and privately on their own house. Additionally, John saw the students are more enjoyable the age in activities they like. More students become likely to participate in classroom activity. Identification of the problem. Students at young age need sometimes unusual but fun to learning English skill. Students are difficult to identify and understand the meaning. Students had lack of vocabulary. Students had lack opportunity to learn listen, so they were not familiar with listening. And the second material will be explained about
Okay, the Wells point C, limitation of problem. The writer focused on the popular song that familiar with students, whether the use of the media effective or not effective to improving student listening skill. In the research question, the author compiles research question based off title. Are English popular songs are effective to improving student listening skill? Point E, research objective. The research of this study is considering on the question above. The author wants to find out the effective of popular song, English pop song to improving study listening skill. Point F, significance of research. Through the research study, the writer wants to examine which English lesson are for teaching listening skill. The use if different media can attract students learn but fun with popular song. Hopefully that the use of popular song that familiar with the student could enhance their listening skill and add the vocabulary and help the teacher to have additional option if if the uh, if they want to teach listening in the classroom.
Okay, well, before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Vika Damayanti, and in this section, I would like to explain about the concept of listening. You can find this part in the chapter 2. Okay, guys, in this era, we know that many definitions of listening that we can find out in the book or internet. Many experts also define about listening. Listening is the activity to understand what other people say. Listening is the basic for development of other skills because as we know that there are four important skills that we have to know in language learning that are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening also defined as one of the subjects in language learning and conversation analysis. There are several levels of listening that we have to know. The first is attention. It means that we have to focus on two things, visual and verbal stimuli. And then the second is hearing. It is the psychology act of open your ears. And then the third is understanding, assigning what the meaning of the information. And then the last one is remembering. It is the storing of the meaningful information. And then why listening becomes so important and good for us? It is because when listen to something, we are reviewing a lot of the English usage, such as vocabulary, grammatical structure, intonation, and a sense or our own interpretation. By hearing something, we can learn new words and expression. We can imitate something we can hear and then apply it with the great confidence. Listening also we can do while we do other things, such as we can listening while cooking or even sleeping, and it also can train our attention. We can become an effective active listener by maintain the eye contact, focus and find something that interesting and doing something other to get the point of what other people say or what you listen is. And then listening have several principles that we have to know to teach the listening skills. The first is expose students with different ways of information processing system. There are two information processing system. The first is bottom up and top down. Bottom up will start with words and grammar, while top-down start with students' knowledge backdrop. If you combine these two, you can find the effective way to teach or in learning. The second is expose students to the different types of learning. The first is specific learning. It is when students must find the main information of the material. And then the second is global listening. It is when students find the more general of something that we listen or the information that we listen. And then the third is teach of variety tasks. Example, the students can listen a story and then the students can listen a story podcast, and then they have to make summary. And then the last one is always consider the authenticity and difficulty of the material. It can be depend on the student's condition itself. Okay, thank you. The next material will explained by my friend.
My name is Sinta Putri Mulyati. Here I would like to explain about types and process of listening activities. The first material is about type of listening activities. First type is active listening. Active listening is the art of listening for meaning. To gain meaning words of another person, listener need to be listening carefully. Meaning is not necessary assured even when we are active listening, but we will at least know that we don't understand and can therefore ask the correct question to gain information. Next types of listening is critical listening. Critical listening is commonly known as evaluate, judgmental, or imperative listening. The main goal of these types of listening is to evaluate the message with logic while analyzing the different opinion provided by the speaker. It needs some analysis, judgment, and critical thinking. Next material is about process of listening activities. The process of listening activities happen in 5 steps. First is listening. Listeners must understand how to listen to the good and correct so that the communication is interwoven and develops effective communication. If the listening process in the communication is not effective, the message can become unclear. Next is understanding. Understanding is the stage where the receiver of the message attempt to understand what is delivering by the communicator. Both communicators, thinker, and the intonation that symbolize the communicator's emotion. Then, next is remembering. Remembering is a process for recording or add information that has been obtained into the mind. Remembering at the step of hearing process, memory is necessary so that the message conveyed by the communicator can be remembered well. Good memory can be useful so that the message received in the same as the original with what is delivered so that it doesn't cause ambiguity or confusion. Next is evaluating. Evaluation is involving of conclusion. The listener participates at this step in listening process. Evaluation step is the step so that the message conveyed by the communicator is the same with the fact that happened in the file. In evaluating, the listener can think to distinguish fact or opinion from communicator before giving assumption. Next and the last is responding. There are two kinds of responding. The first is response given when the communicator is conveying the message. And the second is response given after the speaker convey the whole message. In the communication, providing feedback or response is very important because it decides if the communication process runs effectively as expected. Listening is oral communication, which is very important to know in order to create effective communication. Because not all interlocutor because not all interlocutor can focus on overall message that conveyed by the communicator while listening. So that if you want to be good listener, you must to know the step of good listening. Okay, I think enough for the material. Thank you.
Well guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Kusumudia. Here I want to explain about chapter 3, research methodology. In this research, there is variable and operational definition of variables. Operational definition of variables is explained about variables that used in this research. The indicator input in a variable are result of the synthesis theory, which is used on the theoretical review. The object in this research includes two variables, that is independent variable and dependent variable. Independent variable we can call X variable. Here we choose the tool to help students easier to listen a song. Whatever indicator of this variable was the student SMP Negeri 2 Kota Gajah, Lampung Tengah, can perform their listening clearly. Independent variable we can call the variable. In this variable we choose the listening skill of someone that has default or practice in the listening a song. The next B, setting of the research. This research was carried out at the SMP Negeri 2 Kota Gajah at Lampung Tengah. The subject of the research, we choose the second grade student of SMP Negeri 2 Kota Gajah in academic years 2020-2021. And the next D, procedure of the research. We choose in according to Donald in according philosophy. We choose this is action plan. In cycle 1 there is planning, and then there is acting, and then there is observing. In the cycle 2 we can choose planning and then acting, observing, and reflecting. It is the same with cycle 1.
Okay, my name is Wulansari. Here I want to continue the material. The material is about data collection method. In collection the data, the writer use the sum technique, that is test, observation, documentation, and the file note. Here I want to explain one by one. Test. For the first is test. In this research, the researcher used test of the data collection method to measure both of variable. The test consists of pretest and posttest. Pretest, that is that doing before the lesson is begun. If posttest, after lesson is have done. And the second is observation. Was a monitoring and recording systematically to the phenomenon that was investigate. For the point is, observation was a data collection strategy in which the activities of subject when usually examined. For the third is documentation. Documentation is a data collection method, and the last is the file note. The file note that the data more accurately. The researchers use file note to make easy when analyze the data. Okay, the next is data analyze method. After setting the data from the result of the pretest and posttest, the researchers will analyze the data based on the limitation of the problem and objective of the research. To know the increase of the average score, the result of individual subject was put in the table. The researchers, or in other words is teacher, analyze the data and relate the result of the treatment. To find the average score, the data was analyzed by using mean, sum of, raw score, and total of students. The last is indicator of success. Indicator of success in this research is the student can understand what they are listening correctly. To know the result of research, the research will compare pretest and posttest. Minimum standard at school was 70 points. If the student didn't get 70 points, the student can continue the cycle too, because the teacher just give to time to change the point to be better. Thank you, and I close. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.